Do you think it's insecure for a man to care about a woman's body count?
Only if it's one of the first things they bring up.
First thing. Hi, nice to meet you, Cindy.
What's your body count?
What's your body count? How many penises?
No, it's not insecure.
I feel like if it's the first thing, that's a little indicative
That's
of
my
like
go-to.
what they're thinking about.
What's your body? Good to meet you.
And can you bow?
Also,
Yes.
Can you bow?
Body count, can you bow?
also, like, if he has a higher body count and he is like super like weird about you having a body count like over 3 or something, and like he has a higher body count than you, I think that's really weird. It's just like
I don't think it's that weird.
hypocritical.
No, not really.
Why don't you think it's weird?
I don't think it's that weird. Well, I don't think, here's my argument. I don't think in order to desire a trait in a partner, you need to possess that trait. Now, if you make a judgment about it, then that's different. If you're like, well, people who have high body counts are pieces of shit and blah, 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 like then, and you have a high body count yourself, I don't even know if it'd be hypocritical if you're like, yeah, I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I acknowledge I'm a piece of
Yeah,
shit.
that'd be one thing. But if you're judging someone because
What's
you're
that?
What would you consider a high body count? What is
I
a high
mean,
body
it depends
count?
on age. It depends on age.
Okay, so let's say someone in
I think
30 years old.
once you get over 10, I think that's a pretty good cutoff.
I meant 10 years old.
Oh my god, I was concerned for a second too. I meant 10 years old.
No, 10, the body count. The body count.
Body count
Jesus
is 10.
Christ.
Regardless of
Gosh,
age.
why are these fucking girls?
Yes.
Yeah, body count over 10. That's high.
Okay.
Getting into the high territory.
High for a woman or for a man?
Well, I'm not in favor of male promiscuity either.
Right.
But I mean, I do think there are differences between men and women. But I don't think it's necessarily hypocritical or weird because, like, for example, as a guy, let's say you've accumulated the high body count and perhaps you realized like you've had a shift and you're like, actually this was not the correct way to move in the dating marketplace. I actually have determined I value long-term relationships and I acknowledge that having a high body count, having a promiscuous past, having a lot of sexual partners is bad in a lot of ways. There's a potential higher risk of STDs, as you mentioned. There's an impact on pair bonding. There's a greater likelihood of infidelity. There's a greater likelihood of reporting relationship dissatisfaction. And there's a greater likelihood, if you're inclined to get married, a greater likelihood of divorce. And they've studied this, so the more premarital sexual partners you've had, the greater likelihood of all those things. So you can like realize, oh, I fucked up, but if I'm going to make the most optimum dating choice I can, the most optimum dating choice might include dating somebody who's not promiscuous, doesn't have a promiscuous past, has a low body count. I don't think that that's objectionable.
So what if you were to meet a woman that went through the exact same experience you did? She had a past like that where she was very promiscuous, and then she decided that that was not the direction she wanted to go. Would you still judge her for having a high body count, even though she went through the same realization you did?
So the question is, would I judge her? She had the same realization, promiscuous past.
Same, like, let's just say she has the same body count, exact same, like, basically experience
Let's
you
say,
did,
sure,
but as a woman.
So here's the scenario. I have 100. I'm not saying this is my body count. I have 100 body count. She has 100 body count. We both came to the realization that this is not, this being promiscuous is not good. Trying to, turn a new leaf. Yeah, I would disqualify her. I would disqualify her. 100 body count, done.
So I think
deal
that's
breaker.
hypocritical, but
It's not hypocritical. It's not hypocritical.
It can be your preference, but I think it's hypocritical.
No, because you're not obliged to date somebody.
No.
You can use any sort of judgment or disqualifying metrics that you can use to disqualify somebody.
Totally.
It's
But
not hypocritical.
How
I
are you
wouldn't date this. Okay.
Well-
Do you think that in order to date somebody, you need to possess all the same traits in order to date them?
Well, no. all
No,
of
I'm
them,
just
but
saying if you're
mostly of
gonna,
them.
so basically you have this preference because, in my head at least, because you were at least judging some part of that body count because that is like taking everything else aside, you are judging her body count.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's say I am.
So
and-
what I'm saying is that you judging her body count when you did the exact same thing and have the exact same body count is hypocritical.
No, not.
I'm not saying
I don't
it's.
think so. I don't think it
I'm
is.
saying you're entitled to that opinion, but I think it's hypocritical.
I think it'd be hypocritical if you were making a sort of like a criticism of them. Like if you're like, you're a piece of shit, but I'm not a piece of shit, but you're a piece of shit. But if it's like, well, I did this, but I acknowledge if I'm trying to maximize the type of partner that I want to be with, despite myself doing it, I acknowledge that this is a terrible thing to have in a partner. This is a bad thing to have in a partner. I don't think it's hypocritical, because then you're just making an optimization when it comes to who you choose to date and not date.
But basically, you want to be accepted by someone that is okay with your body count. So you want someone to not judge your own body count, but you are willing to judge someone else for that body count. So I think in a general sense, it is hypocritical.
But again, so are you obliged to date someone who, are you saying you cannot date somebody?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, in order for you to want to be with someone, need you be exactly the same?
Not at all.
Okay. Like, so are there things that you desire in a partner that you yourself don't possess?
Sure.
Like what?
Maybe they're really good at sports. I don't have that ability.
Okay.
Maybe maybe they're really good at playing the violin.
Well, I'll give you a couple examples, right? Because there's a whole, if we're speaking in generalities here,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that women possess in men that they very frequently never possess in themselves. So maybe this is more double standard than hypocrisy, but for example,
Okay, maybe it is more double
because you're saying,
standard.
well, if a guy has a high body count and he wants a woman with a low body count, that would be hypocritical. But what about women, for example, who are not funny, who desire a man who's funny? There's a lot of women who really value humor in a partner, but they're not funny at all. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What about a woman who's broke, but she's attracted to a billionaire? Would you fault her for that attraction?
Wait, say that again?
Would you fault a woman who's broke being attracted to a billionaire? Let's say she has access to dating a billionaire.
I mean,
Would it be hypocritical of her to take the opportunity to date what is an optimal dating move?
I think the difference is that if a guy were to possess all the qualities she wanted, but like was also broke like her and she turned him down, I think that is a little bit hypocritical. Maybe she has her reasons for it, or maybe it's a double standard, whatever, word you'd use to describe it. But I think like she can have those preferences. I think that if she's gonna turn away someone that has the same qualities as her, but she wants something better, I think it is a little funny, like, and that's kind of all I'm saying. I'm saying you can have that preference and that's what you want. I'm just saying that it is kind of funny that is your standard when you yourself don't meet that standard.
Well, I mean, then everybody in the history of dating, I would argue, is engaging in this double standard of hypocrisy, because again, I would argue that the vast majority of women desire traits in men that they don't possess.
That's true.
Like, okay, look, I'll just go down the list. I have it written down here. So, okay, they'll want a traditional man, but they're not traditional. So chivalry, you'll have modern women who really strongly desire like all the chivalrous treatment, but they're like super modern women. They want a charismatic man. What woman doesn't want a charismatic guy? But they're totally devoid of any charisma at all. This one's not totally fair because there's sexual dimorphism, but a tall, women want tall men, but they're not tall. Doesn't make them hypocrites. They want a guy who's strong, but maybe they're not physically strong themselves. They want a dominant man, but they're not dominant. They want a man who takes initiative, but they've never taken initiative in their life. They want a man to chase, but they don't chase. They want a man who's confident, but they're not confident.
Loose Pussy Energy donated $100.
Oh, there
Last
it is.
pod, a 304 admitted she was thinking of a Chad while her simp husband was fucking her, then she divorced his ass. Pair bonding is
That was
real and
brutal.
body count is matters. Abdul, get the fucking
Get
rocks.
the rocks. Get the rocks. Get the rocks. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. LP, appreciate it. And look, there's some dudes that are maybe delusional and desiring like all these traits in women that, well, for shizzle.
What?
Just like
And
you
well,
under
okay,
there.
so here's the here's a bit of a differential on the whole body count thing, right? So I think men tend to care far more about body count than do women.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons is based in evopsych, evolutionary psychology. So one of the reasons why I think men care far more about this than women when it comes to either female virginity or lack of promiscuity or just having a low body count. So I believe it was in the 1980s when we were able to, we started sequencing DNA. We could determine the paternity of fathers with certainty. Prior to the 1980s, and again, even with the invention of DNA testing, that doesn't undo hundreds of thousands of years of evolution in this regard. So if a woman gets pregnant, you know for certain that she's the mother in every instance. Like if you're pregnant, well, you're carrying the child, so there's no doubt to maternity. But when it comes to paternity, there's not really a way to know. Now, I know we have DNA tests now, but that doesn't undo the hundreds of thousands of years of evolution here. So men, we can't know who the father is, really. Like unless we had our eyes on you 24/7. One of the biggest L's that you can take in life as a guy is to raise a child that you think is yours but isn't. So men have a much more vested interest in ensuring the paternity of their children, whereas for women, there's never a doubt of who's the parent for you. That's never a concern. For example, if a man has 10 wives who are all loyal to him, you know who the father is and you know who the mother is for each of those children that ends up getting born. But if one woman has 10 husbands and they're all assume there's no DNA testing, and all those men, the 10 men are having sex with that woman, you don't know who the father is. Who's the father?
Okay. And so how does this relate to body count?
Well, that's
Exactly.
why men care about it more, because there's an evolutionary
All right. So you're saying it's in our DNA to care? In our
There's
evolutionary
social, there's
traits?
cultural reasons, but there is a evolutionary reason for men to care more about this, and that's why men tend to be more territorial.